Around the first quarter of 2020, the world was ravaged with the news of a deadly COVID-19 virus that was already taking lives, and in an effort to protect the rest of humanity, prompted governments to implement lockdowns, a security decision which took a toll on the economy, but also had some other unexpected effects on the families who had to endure staying indoors, some for months. Although the media was quick to celebrate how the lockdowns were strengthening family bonds and inspiring many to be creative and innovative, what was less than expected was the frightening rate of reported cases of domestic violence in many homes.
For people that experience violence, it was such a traumatic experience because now you're forced to remain with the person that is abusing you. And so we added another line to complement the existing hotline. But still then, it was a toll-free. And we're not oblivious of the fact that a lot of our clients are indigent. And so in July, the DSVRT was able to secure a toll-free line, 08000 and of course that really assisted us in ensuring that survivors were able to access support despite the lockdown and the restrictions that followed.
The fight against domestic abuse has been ongoing for decades, with the developed countries at the forefront of empowering and introducing laws that would protect women from any form of intimidation and abuse. But with recent increase in domestic violence incidents, which analysts have attributed to the pandemic's pressure on their economy, one wouldn't need imagine how much worse it would be this period for the woman in climes that regard her fundamental human rights as a privilege.
But the danger in that is unknowingly or unconsciously saying that it's only people below, people experiencing some form of financial disability or discomfort that are prey or can be vulnerable or can be victims of intimate partner violence. But the data shows the reverse. Mm-hmm. Domestic violence, SGPV, is not a respecter of age, class, creed, or financial status. Anybody can be a survivor, but it is something that should be considered.
Government might be doing its part. There are hospitals that you can take the victims to, but are the victims ready to be helped? Because this is a thing of the mind. It's a thing of, it's a thing that concerns you. So you must be intentional about some of these things.
Despite the growing campaign against domestic violence, the lockdown imposed by the federal and state governments across the country to curtail the spread of coronavirus saw a spike in incidents that target women and children. According to reports, during the lockdown, violence has been shown to have increased up to 56%, with the first 2 weeks having cases rise from 346 in March to 794 early April.
I will recall a story from Ejigbo, where a 13-year-old girl was sent on an errand, and she was gang raped, and she died. It was during the lockdown. The lockdown brought about increase in domestic violence, and they were adequately reported by the media.
From our data, we actually realized that majority of the cases that reported, people that reported, they did not say it was COVID. It was as a result of COVID being locked down that the violence occurred. They said the violence had been occurring pre-COVID, but it was just exacerbated by COVID. So in fact, some people, it was the opposite for some people. Some people felt that this was an opportunity for them to bond, for them to fellowship with their children, for them to even get to know their children more. Some people had leveraged on that restriction of movement to really fellowship with the families. But the reverse was the case for some people that were already experiencing violence pre-COVID.
Although attacks against women are common in Nigeria and most likely may not even reduce much after the lockdown, what is more concerning are the many reported cases that may barely be granted attention as a result of a struggling justice system.
The law is that the court has 90 days to look at the matter, decide, and give a sentence. So it's not like the normal litigation type of practice that we have for other civil matters. It's a special court, and the issues are quickly distilled. Victims are not further victimized, and the accused are also given the right of hearing.
The courts are trying. I mean, there's only so much judges can do or lawyers can do, but when evidences are being destroyed or not being preserved, it's a problem. And then, of course, we also cannot rule out our law enforcement agents. They also have to be trained and retrained and constantly trained, because you go to some police stations, they tell you that domestic violence is a family affair. It is not. It has been criminalized, by the Lagos state laws and also by the Nigerian laws.
The thought of having an unstable home is the least on anybody's mind when choosing a partner, as experts are of the opinion that situations and circumstance may trigger strange behavior in some individuals, although not disputing another theory that suggests violence being hereditary. And this is where Nigeria's resolve in the treatment of mental health is questioned.
There has to be a record that is already in place to show that this person has records of mental illness, is going through medication, and has the possibility of violence.
And that's the reason why you have to bring in experts, because you and I may not know too much about that, but the experts know what to look out for, the right questions to ask, and the litmus test to give to get to the root and bottom of the matter.
With the World Health Organization estimating that 1 in 4 Nigerians are suffering from some sort of mental illness, but fewer than 10% of the mentally ill having access to the care they need, it is evident that the country is nowhere near equipped to tackle mental health issues.
Lagos facilities don't serve Lagos State alone. People from other neighboring states find their way to Lagos to access help, and you can't turn them away. So there is need for more manpower, need for more psychologists, more psychiatrists, more pediatric nurses, more occupational therapists, and more medical social workers needed.
Although it is difficult to define one's mental state before endeavoring into relationships, it is advised that cases of domestic abuse are reported to relevant authorities immediately to avoid a reoccurrence and its influence on a child's emotional, psychological, and even physical development, because exposure to violence, whether directly or as a bystander, can have far-reaching negative consequences.
Children that witness violence, they tend to be violent. Children that are bullied, they tend to bully others. If they don't receive support, or if the bully is not addressed, So, witnessing violence whilst growing up is a factor. Patriarchy really is a factor. Religious and sociocultural norms, whether we like it or not, sometimes perpetuate gender-based violence.
The victim also must make an intentional decision to be helped by accepting all the process that have been brought forward to her or to him. Let's help victims of domestic violence come back to life by taking them back to the hospital where they can be reorientated and given the normal psychological support so that they can live a normal life again.
Finally, admitting to having thoughts of committing acts of violence on another person should not be taken with levity. So whenever you feel overwhelmed with negative emotions that could lead to harm, it is advised to talk to a trusted individual who can then recommend a licensed mental health professional who can help.